Welcome to my June 2025 productivity report. As you can see, I'm back in my home office after another month on the go. Lots to talk about, so let's dive right in. June 2025 was a whirlwind month for me for many reasons, but mostly because I was on the road again for much of the month. I spent some time in Canada, which I really enjoyed. I had never actually been to Canada for real. Like, I'd been to the airport, but it doesn't count, right? So I hadn't seen the country as thoroughly as I did this time, and it was actually a nice change of environment for me. I felt like I came out of that experience with a lot of growth and a much better understanding of the local culture. So I think that's a win. This month, I actually learned a lot about myself, and it was a really good reminder that while I am good at a lot of things, there are certain other areas where I am a complete beginner. So it's never indulgent or overindulgent to revisit the fundamentals. So this month's takeaway is a reminder that shortcuts are meant for people who understand the rules. Every so often, I get people asking me, how do I get from A to B as quickly as possible? How do I figure out how to master something, especially productivity, project management, all the things that I teach, in the least amount of time possible? What's your secret? And while I appreciate curiosity, while I appreciate efficiency and, the question, there's something really important missing from that line of thinking, because the fastest way from A to B is actually learning the basics from scratch. You've seen this in my videos. You've probably heard me say this in my courses. And if you're on my email list, you know what I'm about to say. No shortcut will ever work if you don't build a foundation first. And I have figured out that that holds true for everything in life, from setting goals to building relationships. Without looking at a map and seeing the big picture, you will never have a thorough understanding of the landscape that you're in, and you will wander around the woods completely lost. It is not the best way to approach things. No. Excellence lies in the understanding of the fundamentals, and shortcuts are tools, not substitutes for learning. Shortcuts are designed to save time for those of us who have already invested enough effort in understanding the process and the limitations of any given system that we're in. So in other words, you can't break the rules unless you first know what those rules are. It is pretty common sense, but because I hear this so often and because of all the inability to sort of accept that things take time because of the impatience that we all have nowadays, it's really, really important that we remind ourselves of this. And it hit me like a ton of bricks this month. I need to relearn the fundamentals on a few different things in my life. And I'll be the first to say it. Learning that stuff can really suck. There's a lot of trial, there's a lot of error, there's the messy middle where nothing is going right. It is frustrating. It is upsetting. It is not that fun. It's not glamorous at all. And that's why most people obviously want to skip that part. But if you truly want success, we cannot sidestep that process. We have to understand the system and the status quo of what we're dealing with, and then we can figure out a way around it. So shortcuts actually really show up after you've earned the right to use them. And I wish I could tell you something different, but that is something that stood out to me this month. Mastery requires respect for your time, for your coaches, and for the actual skill itself. If you want faster results, you got to take the slow route and understand the basics. And the more fluent you become in the basics, the faster things go, and the more ways you can figure out how to work smarter instead of harder. So the next time you're asking yourself for a secret to achieving a goal, pause and really think about if you're truly committed to that goal. Because chances are that if you're asking that question, you're not really that invested, or you wouldn't have asked. So I want to pose this question to you. Where are you trying to skip a beat? Have you actually earned the right to the shortcut? If not, start over again and again and again until you know the basics. That's what I'm doing. So with that message out of the way, let's take a look at how productive I was in June 2025. And I want to say that it was actually a pretty good month for me in terms of productivity. Overall, I felt really motivated, I felt happy, I felt engaged, much, much different than how I felt in April and May. And I think that can be attributed to my change in environment. If you remember, I wrote back in 2023 when I first started these reports about how much the environment influences what you achieve, how much you achieve, and how well you do it. And it became, again, pretty obvious in June how I can take my life and career to the next level. So it was a good month in terms of productivity. I figured out a lot of things and I learned a lot of things about myself. And I've realized that sometimes you just kind of have to start over. I hit my goal with precision this month. My goal is to finish 3 projects per month, and I did exactly 3. Now, one was much larger than the other 2, so it took up most of my time and attention, and that was fine. I expected as much. And if you've attended any of my quarterly planning sessions, you might be wondering what's going on here, because I normally recommend 3 projects for my students per quarter, not per month. So you might be wondering, well, how come I get to work on more of them and it's totally okay? Well, it's because of focus. As a pro, I can do more because I understand efficient project management and how to attack what I'm working on. That's all. I have no problems focusing. Many of my students do, which is why they've sought me out. So for them, I would recommend 3 projects per quarter to focus on, and not more than that. Now, you can have as many projects as you want on your list, you just can't work on them all at the same time. I've talked about this before on social media. I think of my life as a stove, meaning there's a certain amount of burners, usually 4, and if you take one on, you take another one on, then you take another one on, and another project, your time and your energy and how much you can cook is basically used up. So in order to start something else, you now have to take something off a burner, pause it, and put something else on, right? So if you know how to manage your time and your energy and learn what makes you more efficient, then you can manage and complete more projects at a time. Until you have learned that skill, you have to stick to a certain number of projects so that you don't become overwhelmed, so that you can actually get things done and not feel distracted. So for that reason, 3 per month for me is a very good benchmark. And then once you are a skilled project manager, you can comfortably work on more projects at a time. So for example, during most months, I actually work on between 8 to 10 projects. And I just manage them differently and put some on hold and activate some and move some things around as needed. But I rarely have more than 3 active during any given week. So that gives me the focus that I need to complete 3 of them and move my business and life forward every single month. So think about that. Think about your life in terms of burners, and think about how skilled you are as a project manager in order to be able to cook things the most efficient way possible. My favorite project by far this past month was my trip to Canada, because lately I've been in a very social mood and I have felt the need to connect more in person than I normally do. So this trip really helped with that. I had more people around me than usual, and not only did I get to help out a friend, which is always rewarding, but I also got to move a lot of my business plans forward at the same time. And I met a lot of people that I've ever said hello to, over the phone. And that was a lot of fun to finally meet some of those people in person and give out some hugs. So that was really fun, and I can't wait to go back. In June, I clocked just under 87 hours of work, which breaks down to about 22 hours per week. So now we are back on target. So I'm really happy with that results. So if you've been watching, the last few productivity reports, you'll know that I've had a steady decline in work hours lately. But now that I'm looking at it objectively in hindsight, I can say that that was probably just a bit of fatigue from a very heavy travel schedule in the beginning of the year. So I feel like we're back on track now. Almost 87 hours is right on target. It's right where I want to be. So that's really good. I was never really worried about working too little because I know what needs to happen in my business to move things forward. But what I was worried about was whether or not I was enjoying what I was doing, because that is something that can get away from you really easily. And right now, the answer is still yes. That's really good. Anyone can have a moment where they're not feeling up to things as normal, but the key is to bounce back really quickly. So it's recovery time that counts here more than anything. So in other words, you can have a bad day, no problem at all. You just cannot have a bad month. So if you can bounce back really fast, that's really good, and that's what I did. This month, I took a bit of a break from official content creation. So I only ended up with 347 new files. Highly unusual for me to be anywhere under 2,000. So that was interesting. I did feel it. I missed it a little bit, but I did feel like I needed a break and some downtime from that. So that was a conscious decision. Out of the 347 files that I took, I only kept about 200. So as the ratio, that's some pretty heavy culling, but it needed to be done. And 200 files is still good, even if it's unusual for me to be that low in the count. But again, it's about quality, not quantity here. So I got what I needed. I got what I needed out of the month. Let me remind you also that if you love photos as much as I do, but you're not sure how to manage them, take a look at my course, DPO Pro, the Ultimate Photo Organizing Masterclass, because in that course, we cover exactly how to organize all of your digital files, how to choose your programs, and we have tutorials in Photo Mechanic, Apple Photos, and Adobe Lightroom Classic. So if you love content and content creation, make sure you hop on over and join us there. This month, I walked 202,879 measured steps, which breaks down to roughly 6,750 steps per day on average. So once again, I'm over my step goal of 5,000 steps per day. Not bad, considering that we actually did a lot of driving around while we were in Canada. And I guess I wasn't super worried because when I am here at home in Chicago, we've seen before that I struggle with this, but when I'm out and about traveling or doing something else, it's usually not a problem. So for that reason, I didn't really pay as close attention to this goal this month. I didn't feel like I needed to. I just turned my pedometer on and logged the results, and voila, it worked out. So when I travel, I always excel. It wasn't a big deal, and I did actually enjoy the change of scenery for walking. Quebec is a very picturesque place with lots of natural beauty. And is it a bit remote? Sure. But all the more interesting, right? So a change of scenery is always helpful when you're trying to spend more time outside. Something new to look at, something new to experience. And as you can see, step count checked. The same thing happened with my language progress goal in June 2025. Because I was in Canada, in a French-speaking part of the country, my French accelerated with 114 new words and phrases. And that is well beyond my goal of 15 per month. So thank you very much to all my friends in Canada for the assist on that. Nothing works better than immersion. Immersion is essentially focus. That's what happened. Look at the results. For books and learning, this month I re-listened to the audio version of The Prosperous Coach by Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin via Audible. I had actually heard this book before about 5 years ago. It was recommended to me by one of my coaches, and I picked it up and read it and didn't like it at all. So it was an interesting recommendation. We heavily disagreed, I think, on the contents of that book. So I thought I would give it another try because it's been 5 years. My business has evolved since then. I've evolved since then. And I thought, well, let me just revisit it and check if I still feel the same way about it. It was more curiosity than anything else. Would I see it differently now? And as it turns out, nope, still don't like it. Nothing against the authors, nothing against the book per se. I'm just not in agreement with some of their advice and strategies. So first of all, they advise to give away free 2-hour sessions to pretty much anybody, any prospective client, in order to help them understand what the experience is like working with you. Basically work your butt off and coach and get them results, and then approach them for your business. And while that can work, absolutely, I think it's far too inefficient of a strategy to deal with, because your time is the most valuable thing you have. And if your prospective clients aren't sold on your services by the time they get to you, then they're usually not ready to sign up anyway. Sure, there's always exceptions to every rule. So could it work? Absolutely. But by the time somebody jumps on a discovery call with me, it's merely a formality of figuring out logistics. They've usually decided already that they are interested. And if not, then we can have a 20-minute conversation, and that will do just fine. But I'm not going to give away hours and hours and hours of my time to every single potential client in the hopes that they're going to see my value. I'm going to see my value first, and then they're going to see it, and then they're going to be willing to invest in me. That's kind of how I think about it. So I also don't like this strategy because it kind of feels like a guilt trip. It's like if you're selling a high ticket offer and you're giving somebody a bunch of free coaching, and then you ask for the sale after that, it kind of feels like you're trying to guilt people into buying from you as a return favor. And to me, it just doesn't feel aligned. Again, can it work? Absolutely. Will you get a few clients? Of course. Will you get enough clients? Probably not. It just doesn't sit well with me. So again, nothing against the book per se. It's just not a strategy that I would recommend going with. So, if you're a coach, have a look at it. Have a look at it and see what you think. Just because I don't agree with some of their advice doesn't mean you won't, right? But as I've learned, we can debate and we can disagree and hear each other's interesting points and do our takeaways from there. So I would love to hear what you have to say about it. Let me know. For success celebrated in June 2025, I can say that I got recertified as a photo manager again. I first got certified probably over 10 years ago now, 2013 or 14, something like that. So it's been a while since I had to do it. It was well overdue. I am a masterclass trainer for the photo managers, which is the community that issues the certification. So I was happy to take it and just refresh my skills. And I'm happy to say that I nailed it and I got a perfect score. So turns out I still know what I'm doing, and that is worth celebrating. So here I am again, an official certified photo manager. For tea of the month, I'm going to highlight Moroccan Mint from Harney & Sons. As you've heard me say before, Harney & Sons is just the best quality across the board for loose organic teas. So shout out to Harney & Sons, you know how much I love you. Their Moroccan Mint is fantastic. Normally, when you are dealing with flavored teas, or especially anything that's minty, it tends to be very overpowering. Not this one, okay? That's why I'm recommending it. This one is just the right balance of fresh and bitter, so I really recommend it if you're in the mood for something minty. You can pick it up for Christmas, it's great. It's great for the summer, just to have something more refreshing. It's kind of like a very light York peppermint patty. So if you're into that, definitely give this one a try. Again, it's Moroccan Mint from Harney & Sons, and I will link to it below this video. Before I wrap up this productivity report, I want to say that you have to measure what matters. So please remember that your goals and your productivity is extremely personal, and you do not have to track the same metrics that I do. In fact, you probably shouldn't. The reason I do these reports is to be transparent and to show you that even as a pro in the productivity industry, hitting my goals is sometimes challenging. And I want to be transparent in the way that I do that and show you how I approach things, how I evaluate, and how I reassess when things don't go as planned. So it's my hope that you're going to learn something from watching that process and apply it to your own life. But your goals and metrics are and should be very different from mine. That's okay. And if you aren't sure what your goals should be, let me know and we can figure that out together. Okay. You can also join us in an upcoming quarterly planning session. We have that available for business owners and entrepreneurs pretty much everywhere in the world. And it's really fun. It's a 3-hour strategy call in a live group setting where you get to figure out exactly what you need to prioritize for the next 3 months in business. So hop on over, if you haven't already, to theswedishorganizer.com and click on quarterly planning, and you will see all the information you need right there. So with that, thank you for watching this productivity report to the end. I will see you again next month.